Alright YouTube, what was supposed to be an exciting unboxing has already been started for me by USPS and Canada Post. I picked up my crankshaft from the post office just a few minutes ago, and it might be complete garbage because the box, as you can see, is completely ripped open, and this connecting rod was hanging out quite far. Looks like there are some impact marks on the end of the connecting rod. As durable as crankshafts are, they're not really supposed to be thrown around, and this box was obviously smashed really hard in order to break open like this. So I've already taken some photos just in case there's some damage. I can deal with Canada Post. I'm also considering writing up an invoice to inspect the crankshaft because it's going to take a lot of labor to make sure that this thing isn't twisted or bent and that the rod itself isn't damaged now that it's been thrown around this roughly. So yeah, the coupler took a major impact on the end here. I have to see where it is. The coupler got hit really hard there. It appears to be in really good condition. If it wasn't damaged in shipping, then it should be okay. I'm not sure if this will actually make it into a video, but I've got to put beads on both of the outlets on the water box and on the outlets themselves so that the couplers will stay in place. Otherwise, they're going to have a tendency to just want to pop off. Alright, it took me a little bit, but I got the hang of it. Still not perfected, but the first one's turned out pretty rough. This is my last one. Out of a little bit of curiosity and to kind of show you guys, sometimes I talk about my welder a little bit and it might be confusing, but basically there's a foot pedal that controls the amperage and a dial that controls the amperage. So the dial controls the maximum amount of amperage you can get even if you floor the foot pedal, and the foot pedal can vary it all the way from the lowest up to whatever you set the maximum amount at. So I'm going to point the camera at the welder, and the welder should show you guys how much amperage I'm actually using to do these welds. So in the shot here you can see I have the welder set to a maximum of 185, and then the overall amperage, or the actual amperage, will come on when I push the foot pedal. So once I start welding, you'll see the actual amperage show up there. I've finished welding my beads around and touching them up. This is the way they're going to look on the water box. I got them a little bit nicer on the, whatever you want to call these. But now the hose fits on with a little bit of pressure, and when the hose clamp tightens down, it will hold that securely in place. I've got both of these done the same. And the hose also fits nice and snug over the water box itself. I've got just enough room for a clamp. It'll be very easy to position it there and easy to access. I think what I'm going to do now is drill some holes in these and pop rivet them in place in the hull. I won't be gluing them in because they will be coming back out. I think I might do some fiberglass work around that area just as a bit of a reinforcement. Alright, I want the rivets to be far enough from the outside so that the head doesn't stick out over. So we'll call it 6mm centered. Alright, pop rivets and pop rivet gun. I had my pop rivet gun sitting around on my bench for the longest time and I moved it. Now I won't be able to find it probably. I need to start a little bit of a list of things that I need to get. I think of things throughout the day and I think, oh, that's pretty obvious, I'll never forget that. And then at the end of the day I sit down at the computer and I can't remember at all. So, I realized just now that I only have 6 rivets left of the correct length. So I need 3/16 pop rivets, 2.5 hose clamps, stainless. I didn't talk about this a whole lot, but actually some thought went into the design of these things. I had to make them so that they would actually support some weight, so that meant that the plate had to be on the outside of the hull, or it was a better idea if the plate is on the outside of the hull. That way it's not just the 3 rivets that are supporting the weight, but also the pipe itself is supporting the weight on the fiberglass. And so that meant that I had to have a piece that stuck inside the hull, and that piece inside the hull had to be long enough to get a hose on and get a hose clamp on without interfering with other things. Part of the design that I had to modify slightly from the very first version, I actually had to trim some off the back here, and the reason is I can't fit it between the bond line unless I put it in this way and just barely goes in. So if this was a little bit longer, I couldn't actually get it in because it hits there, as you can see. So in order to get it in, I actually have to put the bottom piece, the bead, in through the hole and then slide it in like that, rotate it. I just checked my pocket for my phone and it wasn't there. And earlier I was doing some repairs to the air compressor up in the attic. This was over an hour and a half ago. And I remembered that I left my phone up in the attic with the light on. Let's see. Yep, it's still there. Oh, jeez. What I'm going to do now is make another piece of 2.5-inch pipe, and then I can tape it to here or fit it up against here and then perfectly align it to where it's going to attach to the expansion chamber. I think I'm getting quite a bit better at welding, especially on something fairly simple and straightforward like this. A big part of that is just making sure that I'm set up properly. I've made this odd looking contraption. I taped a piece of aluminum bar to the outside of the elbow and used the new piece of 2.5-inch pipe that I made. I'm going to use this to figure out the angle of the inlet on this side. Then I can tack the inlet into place, and then I can hopefully shape this piece so that it fits perfectly with the expansion chamber. And then I can cut and weld that into place. I think actually the smart thing to do before I weld this on, I'm actually going to put a bead around the end here, because once this is welded on, that's going to be harder to do, and it's also going to be harder to shape because I won't be able to do it in the lathe. I'll have to do it by hand. I think this is going to be a little bit tricky to weld together because there's some tight spots and some big gaps, but yeah, I think I can handle it. That actually went really well. All I have left to do is a little spot in here. I'm definitely gonna have to change my torch setup to do this. For those of you who are interested, they call this a gas lens setup, which has nothing to do with the Pyrex cup. That's a different thing altogether, but the Pyrex cup just fits on with some O-rings. And the gas lens is actually, there's a screen that the gas flows through that acts as a diffuser, and it helps give you better coverage. The gas comes out less turbulent, and so it covers the surface more evenly. The recommendation is you're only supposed to stick the tungsten out as far as the width of the cup. So I have a cup that is 1/2 inch. So I can run the tungsten out safely 1/2 inch. I'm gonna go a little further than that. I'm gonna crank up the argon a little bit and hope that this works out for me. Okay, it worked. It's almost impossible to film, so I didn't, but I've now got the cardboard cut out to the shape that it needs to be. I can slide that in and transfer that onto the aluminum. This is going to get trimmed off like that. I've got the basic shape, and now I'm going to mark out that shape on the expansion chamber. Yeehaw! Now I've got a whole lot of filing and grinding to do to make this fit in there. Now that it's in the hole, what I need to do is make sure my angle is correct. So I'm going to pull up on that. I expect it to make a little bit of smoke because there's still some two-stroke oil inside of the pipe, so that should be fun. Almost done. And I'm done! Haha! Yeah, it doesn't look really good, but it also doesn't look really nasty. The quality of the cast was quite good, but I hit a couple of spots here, a couple of pockets where, yeah, it was kind of a little bit nasty. I'm gonna wire brush this off, let it cool off a little bit, and then we'll fit it back in and I'll show you guys how well it lines up. After 3 or 4 videos of saying that I was going to get the center bleed installed on this exhaust system, I finally got it done. I changed my mind at the very last minute. I decided to change the angle coming out of the expansion chamber. Maybe that was a mistake, but I will tell you guys why I did that in a second. I'm pretty sure I'm still going to be able to use a straight hose because it's not that misaligned, it's not that much of an angle. So I'm really hoping that I didn't screw myself over there, because if I have to get a really weird angled hose, yeah, I'll be annoyed at that. But it's long enough and slight enough of an angle that I'm pretty sure I can just use a straight hose. Anyway, I'm going to show you guys what it looks like now, and yeah, pretty exciting stuff. As you can see, the angle of the inlet into the water box is slightly steeper than the outlet on the expansion chamber. And as I was saying, there's 2 reasons why I did this. The first reason is not the biggest reason, but the first reason is just because I think it matches the hood line better. I didn't want anything sticking up above the hood line, and I didn't want it, yeah, it just would have looked goofy, I think, if it was pointing directly at it. And the next reason is that there's actually going to be water injected into the outlet in here. And I'm concerned that if I shut it off abruptly, and this is angled quite steep, then I'm going to get a bunch of water running back into my expansion chamber. Now this might not help with that, this might not do enough to keep it out. I'm going to have to be very careful about the amount of water that I actually inject in here, and I'm going to have to be careful about any other water that I inject into the system. That's just something that I'm going to have to play with and figure out. So now I need a 2.5 inch hose that is approximately, that's hitting there, so we can't go further than that. So I need a 10 inch hose, 2.5 by 10 inch hose. I have some 2.5 inch hose coming that I'm going to use for the outlets on the water box, and I'm gonna have to go in the house right now and order myself a 2.5 by 10 inch piece of hose for the other part of the exhaust system. I've also got a short list of stuff that I've been making here to order up, so I'm gonna have to take care of that as well. I don't know if I've inserted the clip into this video because it might have made it too long, but I did get my crankshaft. The box was completely destroyed, and I'm going to have to thoroughly check the crankshaft to see if it was damaged. One of the rods was actually hanging out of the box, and I'm quite concerned about it. But regardless, I'm going to be able to actually fit the crankshaft into the cases and then figure out basically exactly how long I'm going to need my drive shaft. I think I'm going to try making the drive shaft myself or modifying the drive shaft myself. Yeah, if I miserably fail, then I might just have to get a machine shop to do it. I have a lathe and I have a welder, but I'm not experienced at milling or machining, and I'm not experienced at welding. One of the problems that you run into when you try to weld shafts together is it's really hard to get them straight, and I'm not sure if I will be able to sleeve this or not. So yeah, that might determine whether or not I get somebody else to do it. I'm very excited about what's happening next with this project. I don't know what the next video is going to be about, but I'm sure it's going to be exciting, whatever it is. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.